guys, we're here with my sister. It's been a long time. Welcome back to YouTube. We're going to do a brown eye enhancing makeup look on her, full glam, because I have blue eyes, and it's also going to show you guys kind of how I do makeup on clients. So if that's helpful, then stick along for this video. So I'm going to start by priming or moisturizing the client's skin as always. This is the e.l.f. Super Hydrate, which is really, really good. I always do this before starting on brows and eyes so that the product has time to sink and soak into the skin, which is necessary for your product not to break and build up, and also for the skin to just be really nice and hydrated and moisturized. Next, for brows, I'm always going to be using the Dip Brow Pomade. On clients, sometimes with lighter brows, I will use a brow pencil. I do her brows very often, so I know how I like them to look and how to do them. When it's a client, I might use a brow pencil and get a less structured brow, but sometimes if it is a darker haired client like my sister, we've got bold brows and just darker hair in general, I will still use the pomade on them. Again, we're just using makeup from my personal collection though versus my kit, but I do have the pomades in my kit. I just also have a lot of brow pencils in there. I got a new foundation from Lancome that I'm thinking about trying out on you today.
Is it pale? Because I'm very white right
Yeah.
now. Okay.
But I also have Mix-In that's white pigment, so it can lighten up like any foundation I want to use. Now after this, over on my Patreon, we are actually I'm going to be interviewing my sister for the Sounds Like a You Problem podcast, kind of just asking her opinion and experience, like her life experience growing up with having parents as addicts. Like, you guys know my experience and you've heard from me, but also her older sister having an addiction, and just specific questions interviewing her and kind of her perspective. So if that's something that you guys want to watch, it's over on my Patreon, just so that we can be a little bit more raw and honest with you guys, as we do have to censor ourselves a little bit, obviously, for YouTube. So if that's something that you want to check out, you can see that over there. I'm not sure which video will be posted first, but probably around the same time, to be quite honest with you. There's other videos up there as well from my own personal experiences and all that, so if that's something that you enjoy, I think that you'll enjoy the Sounds Like a You Problem podcast episode with her. Once I do the brows, I'm always going to prep the eyes with the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. It's just super full coverage, but I'm going to start by carving the brows out and then going and prepping the eye. So if I'm doing a client, I'll usually be standing, not sitting, and I'll move to either side of their face because of my left-handedness. I'm always going to take the concealer in between the client's brows so that when it comes to foundation and the base, I don't have to worry about messing up the brows or getting in between the brows or any of that. So, and I do get asked this pretty often, but I don't typically put a primer on clients unless they have extremely enlarged pores, or if they're telling me like they are so oily that they know it's going to be a problem, and that's just for longevity. Normal oils I can keep at bay with powders and stuff like that, and really the best prep for your skin is just skin prep, not primer, in my opinion. Okay, now this is a brow pen. You guys have seen me use this often. This is the NYX Snatch and Lift, and so this is just going to add a little bit more dimension. Fully prep the eyelid. I'm just going to put some of this Tarte Shape Tape all over. I'm going to do the eyes first, typically with any bride or any photography makeup, because this is going to ensure that the face and the base makeup doesn't get any fallout on it, and that I can clean up these eyes really, really nicely. And this is just my preference, so it doesn't have to be done, but I've noticed in the long run after doing this for so long that it saves me usually some time for any kind of accident that might happen. And when I'm blending this, I'm going to blend it into the bridge of the nose and out past the eye socket as well. That's just going to ensure that all the foundation matches and meets up when we get to that point, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to be using the creamy Huda Beauty Neutral Brown Creamy Obsessions eyeshadow palette from Huda Beauty. This is such a pretty palette, and it's going to be so flattering for brown eyes. I'm going to start by using this shade to set her lid. Next, I'm going to go into this shade right here. These don't have numbers on them, but this is just going to give us a good starting point for a crease. I'm going to go into the next deepest shade here. Now, she has very large eyes, so I don't really have to worry about making the eyes appear bigger as I do if it's for myself or a client that's requesting that. She naturally has really big eyes, so what's nice about that is you can kind of get away with doing whatever you want. without having to worry about if it's going to make the eye appear smaller, which is why big brown eyes specifically look so good with such with such a smoky and like blown out waterline and under eye, because they can hold that heavy eye weight. I'm going to take a smudger brush here, and this darker brown that's very neutral, almost cool, but it's not quite. And I'm going to smudge this right along her lash line. I'm going to make sure to really get right in that inner crease if you have to lift up on the eyelids a little bit. As you can see, that just added a little bit of definition to the eyes, and it's very, very subtle. And we're going to slightly drag this out. Next, I'm going to take this darkest shade in the palette. It is a brown, it's not quite a black, but I'm going to take this on a very tiny angled brush. And with this, I am going to go in and again line that lash line. You could also do this with a pencil. I actually really, really like it.
I can't see anything.
I know. So I like this, and it's kind of turning into a bit of like a smoky winged liner. She has a lot of lid space, so we get really lucky with a client like that, because you get really lucky with a client with a lot of lid space because there's not too many precautions you have to take in order for it to look good or turn out well, because we don't have to worry about what space we have, what we don't. But I am going to take a little bit of this middle shade, and I'm just kind of feathering this into the crease to add a little bit more definition here and kind of blend this in, because I felt like the crease was not strong enough.
Probably don't ever play around with blues or purples on my eyes, because don't they go well with brown?
Yeah, we did. We did one time where I did like a pop of teal, remember?
No.
We can do that. I
Not like today or anything, I was just wondering.
I don't know. I always just do neutral, because like on brown eyes it looks so good to do like a dark waterline and smoke it out. Like it looks super sexy and sultry, but not that blue wouldn't. I don't know. I never think about it. We can definitely do a colorful look next time. I'm sure people will love this, and it would be cool to do a really, really bold brown and blue look, which I could totally add matte blue all over your lid and it look really cool today.
I don't know, because I haven't done it before and I have work to do.
Okay. Now I'm going to take this creamy kohl eyeliner. It's a dark brown eyeliner. It's called Berry Brown from Huda Beauty. And I am going to smudge this all over the lash line to actually deepen up what we've been doing. And then I'm immediately going to go back into that brush that I had and smudge this out. This is going to give us a higher concentration of that definition. And all of these neutral browns are really going to pop out all the different tones in your eyes. If you have brown eyes, especially if you have the shade of brown eyes that she has, you can darken them by using a lot of blacks and darker warm browns, but you can lighten them by using these very neutral, smokier browns. Alright, so at this point we have a smoked out wing liner base. We can always add glitter, we can always add matte, we can always do more, but this is where I'm going to go for now, because it looks really good, and not that we're on a time crunch, but I enjoy this, and it's kind of simplistic and easy, so if you're trying to follow this at home, I feel like it's easily attainable. Okay, at this point you can use a makeup wipe, or you can use some micellar water and a tissue, which is what I have right now, actually. And I'm just going to lightly, and I say lightly because I don't want to remove all that prep that we did, but take off any fallout. You can also sharpen up the eye look with this. So that way when you go to do the base, you're not mixing around a bunch of eyeshadow that might have fallen on the tops of the cheeks, so you don't get like a darkened base going on. We don't want that. We don't want that to mix in with the foundation. This is what I'm going to be using a mixture of. I've never used this Lancome foundation, so I'm excited to. And then she's a little bit paler, so I'm going to add the LA Girl Mixing Pro Pigment.
Might be important to know that I almost always ask for medium or full coverage, because I do have a lot of like rosacea on my cheeks. I don't know if they can see that on camera because I'm blind, but rosacea around my nose and my cheeks.
Yeah, she doesn't have any major acne spots. If she did right now, I would cover that with concealer and let it sit when I was doing her eye base, but because she doesn't, it's not necessary. I am mixing a white pigment with this foundation because she is on the more fair side, and I'm using my personal kit for this, like my personal makeup stash, so most of my stuff is much darker than her, as you can, I'm sure, tell on camera. So I'm just applying this foundation to the face after mixing it on the back of my hand with a foundation brush. If it were my face and not a client, I'd be going in with my hands, and sometimes even then I do, but because I needed to mixing it with the brush is smarter. I'm making sure to go around the eyebrows with this foundation so I don't have any demarcation, because I have a brush that allows me to do that really easily. Now that I have most of the foundation where I want and need it, I'm just going to kind of buff it into the skin and disperse it in all areas at this point before blending with a sponge. And if you're on my channel, you know I always do a brush and then a sponge, because then I get that coverage that I'm looking for. It makes sure there's product everywhere that I'm wanting the product to be, but then that sponge goes in and it's going to make sure there's no buildup, nothing settling in fine lines or creasing, and there's no extra cakey product anywhere. Another thing is with clients that have nose piercings, I always tell them we'll clean that off afterwards, because there is no point in worrying about it right at this moment and with all the other makeup we're going to layer on. So I am used to doing clients with piercings, and it is just easier to worry about it afterwards. Even them taking out, because then putting it back in is going to it can mess up their foundation. So it's just smarter to wait and clean it up afterwards. Push everything in to make sure that there are no harsh lines. And sometimes I'll catch myself resting my hand on a bride's hair, so I try not to do that, obviously. You don't want to be messing up the bride's hair if she's gotten it done prior to her makeup, but if she hasn't. Alright, next you can see where I've applied the concealer. I never apply it too close to the inner corner of the eye here, because this is where you're going to get the most creasing, is in the under eye area. So the less product you have there, the less chance you have of it creasing really badly. I am going to add a little bit of this white pigment again, just because most of my products are much more darker complected. And I have other shades in my kit, but I'm not using my kit because I don't feel like sanitizing everything. So I'm just adding this white pigment to the inner corner where I'm going to want more brightness to be here. And then we're going to kind of add it to the outer corner of the eye so that we can clean up and brighten that eye. Then I'm going to go in with a brush and just tap all of this in. Again, you're going to get the best coverage and the nicest finish and the most long-lasting makeup when you're pushing this into the skin with a brush and then going back and making sure everything is super, super flawless with your sponge. It's my favorite. I always use both. I think that both have different qualities and different reasons to use them, and I like to take advantage of both of their qualities. So then I'll have my client look up, and I will start to blend this into the under eye. And I usually will give them a break and let them blink, and they usually get the cue. I don't usually have to walk them through this. I'm usually a little bit more gentle on my actual clients and kind of really talking them through what's going on, but my sister has been my model for 20 years at this point, so I don't have to worry about that. And you don't have to get it all the way up to that under lash line if you're going to go ahead and put shadow underneath, which we are, and you should, because that's prime real estate. Next, I'm just going to go in and push into the skin those concealer spots, and that's going to give us that flawless finish. And I'm going to have her look up, and I'm going to blend so that nothing creases. And if it does, we're about to set, so it's okay. For contour, I'm going to use a mix of the LA Girl shade in Toast and some concealer just to lighten it up, because this is going to be quite dark for her because she is so pale. I always put this on the back of my hand before any client or on a palette that I have, because that's going to give us a really, really, really nice It's going to give us a really, really nice finish when we put this onto the skin, and to make sure that nothing is blotchy or splotchy and just look really, really, really natural and nice. So I'll just add a little bit of a bronze and some definition. And this is just really going to bring the face back to life after we took all that structure out by giving us a blank base with that foundation. We're bringing it back now by doing this. I don't usually contour my clients' noses for the sole fact that most clients are paying to get their makeup done because they don't know how to do it. So they're probably not contouring their nose at home. I will, however, add just like a quick wash of color so that everything seems to match and blend and mesh really, really well. And is cohesive, since I'm putting it on other areas of the face that I want shadows to be highlighted. Just know that most clients are going to want to look like themselves, especially on their big day. They don't want to look that different when they look back on photos. Some do, but with client consultations, that's where that comes in. So then I'm going to just blend this all in with my sponge and go over it, which helps us again with that flawless blend. If anything is too dark or too much, don't worry, because I like to go a little heavy-handed because we end up powdering everything and we're going to lose a lot of that pigmentation and contrast. Now with blush, again, I'm going to go on the back of my hand. And this is a cream blush. I prefer to use cream over liquid on clients because I prefer to use that on myself. It just has a higher chance of lasting longer. It's all personal preference, but I do go a little heavy-handed on the blush for what most people's preference is because blush melts off and fades the quickest by the time you're being photographed and by the time you get everything said and done and all set. This is the ColourPop blush stick in the shade Under Pressure. It's my favorite. And I will just take whatever's left on the brush and with like a little bit of a lighter pressure, kind of dust those little edges of where the bronzer is because I notice it gives you a really, really natural, like, this is my skin but better, I've been in the sun, I look like this naturally kind of vibe. And who doesn't want that? So, you know, my favorite, the Makeup Revolution Translucent Setting Spray. Obsessed with this stuff.
Setting powder, not setting spray.
Thanks. You're welcome. I'm going to use my nicer powder puff on her, but I have different ones, obviously. I'm not going to explain every time I use something. I'm going to blend out these, anything that has creased while I was doing the rest of the face and immediately set that. See how I didn't waste any time? That way we're not worried about creasing at all. Now what I'm going to do to make her makeup last the longest is I'm going to really, really push this powder in, okay? Every place that I concealed. So I'm just really making sure that that cream is becoming a powder. It's nice and set and we're good to go. When it comes to the rest of the face, I'm going to use a powder bronzer and blush because this is going to give us more layers to work through as far as makeup goes, which gives us a better chance for the makeup lasting much, much longer. This is a L'Oreal Infallible Bronzer and I love it. And I'm just going to set that bronzer. If you feel like you went heavy-handed on a client though, you can always set with powder and just keep the cream bronzer as it is and use like the translucent powder to make it go from a liquid cream to a powder finish. We want everything set. It's kind of like painting a house. You wouldn't go in with a second layer of paint until it was dry. And so we're not going to go in with anything else. And we're not going to call this finished until the paint is dry. Because you wouldn't start moving furniture in or moving around or living your life until it was dry. Same with your face. It's going to move if you don't set it. It is necessary. This Wet n Wild blush, the color Icon blush in Pearlescent Pink. This is going to give her a bit of a sheen and shimmer to her cheeks. It matches the cream blush we put on underneath. The reason we are topping off that cream, again, with a powder is to set it in place, but also to give us more layers to work through. So overall, this is going to be a very set look that she doesn't have to worry about if she is dancing, sweating, eating, doing anything with her partner. Because typically my clients are bridal, so they need their makeup to last through the ceremony and through the reception and all of that. And I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of a dusting, the same places that I talked about. Sometimes I'll even kind of mesh it into the brow, just a little bit. And it seems crazy, but it's the littlest things like this, when you do them consistently throughout the face, that make the biggest difference. Now this is my secret trick for getting a really bright under eye. This is the e.l.f. Camo Powder Foundation. I'm going to take a loose, fluffy brush, and this is a powder foundation, so it has a lot of coverage. And this is going to help really, really brighten that under eye and get rid of any dark circles, but also brighten it at the same time. And you just need a little bit of this because it's very full coverage. So anywhere you might need a little bit more brightness, you can just add the teensiest bit of this. You can also use a pressed powder, but I'm just choosing to use a powder foundation to set the rest of the face because, again, more coverage.
We went very light on the eye makeup today.
We're not done.
Okay. I just, like, comparatively to the last time we did it, I think we did, like, a darker smoky eye, so that's why it threw me off when you were like, I'm done for now, and I was like, are you?
For now. Okay. All right, this is the NYX Bear With Me. I always tell my clients to brace themselves because I'm going to drench their face, and I always tell them not to like scrunch up their face or anything like that. She knows the drill, so I'll say close your eyes. Whenever this hits your face, it's going to surprise you. Try to stay as relaxed as possible, or you're going to get all that creasing into your makeup. So this re-wets every product we put on there. They're going to sit nice and slow. They're going to keep their eyes closed because especially if they have hooded eyes during this process, the makeup from your lash line will transfer into your crease, and we don't want that. So we're going to push this all into the skin because this creates one veil, one layer of makeup. All those multiple layers we put on by using this light pressure and get everything wet and just pushing this into the skin, we're going to get this beautiful, beautiful one whole cohesive meshed layer of makeup. And it's always nice to have a fan on hand if you can to help move things up, speed them up, go quicker, especially when it comes to the eyes. And that's why you want to do this before mascara. And then anywhere your client might get greasy, or if they have oily skin, or if you want to mattify, you can just go in with that translucent powder and set just on those little areas for your own insurance plan to make sure that that makeup is going to last. And so I'll just touch up the T-zone usually and a little bit under the under eye. The brows need a little bit of life back into them, so I'm just going to use this $3 clear brow gel. It has a really, really loose hold, which I like, so that way it doesn't make anyone's brows feel crispy or weird. And I'm just going to rub this through the brows. And yes, rub, because I'm going to kind of go back and forth to make sure any powder that's gotten into the brows is getting wetted so that it doesn't take away the shape of the brow that we gave, that really nice, sharp, clean shape. This is the Wet n Wild Brow Gel. Moving back to the eyes, I'm going to take this center shade, which is a little bit of a darker shade. I'm going to have her open her eye. And something that I like to do with my clients is take the sponge that I had, loop it on my pinky so that it protects the back of my hand. Really, it's going to protect her face from the back of my hand. See that? So I'm not removing any makeup as I do this under eyeshadow, because the powder puff is the thing that's touching her skin, not my skin. And we're gonna blend this out just a little bit. So I'm using lighter pressure. I wanna buff this under the eye, but not too much. She has incredibly long under eyelashes. The top ones are long too, but I want to make sure that I bring the shadow below those, even whenever I add mascara. I'm gonna take that shade we set with in the beginning and just put this back onto the lid of the eye, just to reinstate that brightness and bring that back. I'm going to take a little bit of this bronzer because it's warm and because it's on the rest of her face. You good? Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to sneeze.
No, I thought I was going to yawn, but I wanted to keep my mouth shut.
And then I'm going to go ahead and add this to the crease, kind of blending it into the temple, just using really, really light pressure, almost like an avant-garde, like Bob Ross painting kind of way. Like, I don't want this too concentrated. I want this very, very lightly put on here because it's really just a way to mesh everything together and make it look really blended and less bold. But because the eyes are so neutral and the face is leaning pretty warm at this point, I just want it to match a little bit better. It's that same bronzer that we used, and this is a trick I use often with my clients. I'll usually go straight in with the bronzer I use on their face on their eyes, or vice versa, because I know that it will all cohesively come together really, really nicely. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and apply mascara. This is the Pacifica Dream Big Mascara. I always have my clients look down. That way, if they blink, it's no big deal, and I can lift up on their eyelid as needed. And I'm not as dependent upon them. I've just learned that this is what works best for me. Usually I have like a tiny little disposable lash wand, but I also don't normally curl my clients' lashes. It freaks a lot of them out. And I noticed that if you're putting on falsies, unless they grow straight down, you can kind of get away without doing it. That is just personal preference. You'll see makeup artists that do. I personally don't. I feel like the mascara goes on better and it's easier to get a falsie on if the lashes aren't curled extremely tight. So then I'll give my client a break, and then I will go to the under eye and I'll go zhuzh, and then pull it back. That way every time I pull back, the client knows that they can blink. One thing I always tell clients is it doesn't matter if we get mascara all over because we can clean it up, and I would much rather have all their lashes coated and then have mascara I have to clean up than no mascara on their lashes. This is prime real estate. You know that if you watch this channel, you've got to get the bottom lashes. So we're going to do lashes. When it comes to lashes, I know that my sister can handle a lot because one, she naturally has really, really long lashes. So keep that in mind with clients who have really long lashes naturally. Also, she has really big eyes, so I know she can handle a lot more. But with someone with smaller eyes, smaller lashes, shorter lashes, they're not going to be able to handle as long of a lash or dramatic of a lash. She also wears lashes normally, so I think I'm actually going to stack these, but I'm going to start by applying these first and we'll see. Always measure your lash first up on the client's eye and see how much you need to trim off. It almost always is about two little, I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost
like 2 notches.
Always like 2 little notches, yeah. Then you can do the same with the other eye, or just hold it up, or just give it a good guesstimate if you're really good at your skill like I am.
We love the confidence.
Once you've applied the glue on your lash band, as I'm sure you guys do if you do your own, I'm going to have my client close their eyes, and I'm going to let them know I would like them to keep it closed until I let them know otherwise. I'm going to take that lash, and I'm going to go ahead and set it to where the end lines up with the end of the eye, and I'm going to push that in, and then I'm going to worry about the inner corner, and I'm going to kind of hold that there for a second. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to let them open their eye and flutter it around, because it is going to allow that to come off before it fully secures. This is also a great time to have that fan handy because it allows this time to be sped up. And I usually will have them keep their eye closed while I go ahead and do the second lash, as this just ensures that nothing's going to be moved around and we can worry about it when they do open their eye. Go ahead and have you open. And something with my sister that always happens is her little bottom lashes will get stuck often because of how long they are into the top ones. And I've actually had this happen with a client before as well, and they're used to it typically. You can go in there and gently remove them.
Well, I haven't had falsies on because I do like my regulars. It feels so weird to have them on top and not underneath my lash line.
Yeah, they're heavy, and clients always talk about that, and will say that as well. Like, they're heavy, they're not used to it. You can either go in with your finger or tweezers, and just make sure it's attached to the eye all the way across. If this feels dangerous to you, it's because it can be, but I really have done this for so long at this point that it doesn't scare me anymore. And I try not to actually warn my clients about me doing this, because then they are more likely to react and overreact and kind of blink and pull back from me, and that's where the danger comes in of them maybe getting poked in the eye. Other than that, I haven't had any issues. So as you can see, this really enhanced her natural brown eyes, but we are going to put a brown in the waterline, which is going to enhance that even more. It's going to look phenomenal. Eventually we'll do a pop of color. Like green would look really good, so would blue in her waterline. We're not going to do it today, but today we're going to do the brown because it's a little less harsh than black, and I just think if you guys watch my video of brown eye makeup versus black eye makeup, I think that you will see that this just looks so flattering and not enough people do it, and it can really enhance the brown and just bring out all those different tones. So if you can see the difference, use the Huda Beauty Lip Contour 2.0. This is the shade Warm Brown, and then we're going to do Trendsetter on her lips. Now these are all, like, this says Warm Brown, but it's just going to tie in the whole monochromatic look of it all, which is going to really play emphasis on her eyes. I love doing a monochromatic look, but I don't usually do a blue monochromatic look. This is going to tie into her bronzer. It's going to tie into, again, the eyes, the eyeliner, all of this that we did. So it's just going to look really good in the end. A way to make your client's lips last longer is either to use a lip stain underneath whatever color you're using that is similar to the shade, or by filling in your lips all the way with lip liner. Liquid lip is also a good way to do that. But this is the most long-lasting lip liner I've ever used from anyone. This is such a good lip liner, so I highly recommend. This is a very neutral brown lip in a way that it's a nude, and it's not too brown and it's not dark. So once we have this on here, it's just going to be really flattering again and pretty universal. And once it dries down, it's going to look even more flattering if you ask me. A trick that I actually often like to do is to take a little bit of concealer on my finger and, open please, I will just gently dab this into the center of the lip while the liquid lip is still a little bit wet, and it lightens it a little bit, and what this is going to do is give us like a natural looking ombre that's really subtle. And my next best trick when it comes to lining the lips, getting anything out of the lines, is to go in with a concealer around the lips that's the same shade as that foundation. And this is going to give you just a really clean, crisp lip line. And this is also a trick that I've noticed has helped foundation to last longer, and that lip liner, that crisp lip liner, to last longer as well. So I love doing this trick. I almost never go without it, and I do it on my makeup. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Too much.
So this is a trick I do constantly with my makeup, but I like to make sure I do it on my clients as well because I get really good results when I do this. Perfect. Alright guys, this is my little protege, my masterpiece, my assistant when it comes to weddings. My little sister Lily. Her makeup looks amazing. We did a very brown, sultry look. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please go check out the interview with Lily on the Sounds Like a You Problem podcast. You can find it in my Patreon. I will link it below for you. I will link her TikTok in the description below, but don't expect much. And you know where you can find me, my sunburnt face, and we'll see you there. Bye! If you did, please go check out the Patreon and listen to the episode of Sounds Like a You Problem.
The episode of It Sounds Like a You Problem featuring me. You happy with that?
I still, no, not. And if you want to check out my TikTok, her TikTok, that's where you can find us. No, that's not true, because you don't post TikToks at all. Ever.
No, I guess I could start.
Damn, what was that?
This just started slipping and I caught it, but if I move, I'm not going to be able to hold it.
You can do whatever you need to do.
I had an itch.
Yeah, you can.
I was zoning out, so.
One more, you say it. You?
Yeah, his music.
Oh. I know, I told him, I was like, I'll never know if this song is good or not because it's all I've heard for the past decade. There's nothing, like, casual about that.
Fuck. Haven't had my Red Bull yet, don't judge me. I was just making sure you didn't embarrass yourself on camera.
Alright, now I'm gonna do the makeup revolution. Okay.
Ah!
You guys.
The brush feels soft. You said you haven't used them before. I'm just filling you in.
I felt them though. Oh, Jesus H.